Welcome to Feminine Power Time, where wisdom, leadership, and well-being meet. And welcome to episode 7 of 9 in this special season 8.5, the Season of Light. I'm Jennifer Alexander, co-curator and guest host for this season, which is running in June, July, and August. But whenever you're listening, trust that you're receiving this in the perfect season for you. If you're new here to Feminine Power Time, welcome. We're so glad that you found us. And if you're a longtime listener, thank you for coming back week after week to be in this conversation with us. It's been a pleasure and a deep honor to be here with you all and with Christine during this season of light, as we're in this real-time experiment of the feminine practices of co-creation and grafting, holding space here on the podcast for us to gather during this season to stay light together. And just a quick reminder, what is staying light? It means to stay centered, calm, and clear, to be radiant, resilient, and rooted even in the midst of the swirl of the outside world. It's not about spiritual bypassing. Instead, it's a way of living and utilizing our practices in order to come back to our light, even when we get wobbly. And trust me, we all get wobbly. We're human. We're having a human experience, and it's not about being perfect and maintaining some high level of vibrational consciousness all the time. It's about embracing our humanity, having emotions, having thoughts, and seeing them in order to transform them and elevate from wherever we are, so that we can show up differently as leaders in our own lives, in how we use our voices, our choices, and our presence in responding to life as it unfolds. Our topic for today is the feminine superpower of Catalyze. This is all about how we can embrace our power to shift and transform ourselves, our relationships, situations that affect all the realms of our lives. Christine will share with us today how to move from being catalyzed by the events in our lives to being a conscious catalyzer who chooses to engage with the shifts and the change that are always occurring in ways that allow us to release what's no longer needed or serving and liberate ourselves to a more full, empowered, and elevated expression of our soul's purpose. This is a powerful episode, and I'd be willing to bet you'll be transformed in the listening of it. So I invite you to press pause on the outside world and dive in deep with us today. Here's Christine.
Welcome to Feminine Power Time. This is Christine Arilo, your host, and today is going to be a hot one because today we are going to dive into one of my favorite superpowers, the feminine superpower to catalyze. And this superpower, it's happening to all of us right now at a personal level, a relational level, a social level. And the thing about the power of catalyzing is you can either learn to use it, to work with it, to wield it, or it's going to happen to you. And it oftentimes will kick your butt as you go through whatever transformation you're going through. And so for those of you that are new here, welcome. For those of you that have been around for quite a bit, you'll know something about the feminine superpowers. It's one of the ways that I teach feminine power and I love superpowers because who doesn't want a superpower? And these superpowers that I teach in the feminine wisdom way, wisdom school that I founded, and also in the leadership work I do, they're tied to and connected to really, really, really sacred feminine archetypes and energy that I learned and studied and have been studying for almost 20 years now. And so my superpower is taking deep esoteric wisdom and translating it for our modern times so that you and I cannot just survive, but we really can thrive, and not in the sense of like, oh, thrive, everybody thrive, and be like, yeah, how do we do that? So I was sitting with what and how could I serve you all today? I've just been watching what's going on in the world. I'm just back from 2 weeks of a trip down to California where I did some catalyzing of my own, which is one of the reasons I took the trip. I'll share a little bit about that with you as well. And I thought before I can kind of share some of the things I've been noticing and seeing, I wanted to take a pause here with you all It's Sunday. It's the full moon in Aquarius. And for those of you that don't know, Aquarius is oh, well, it's my sun sign, but it also is the sign that is connected to creating a better, bigger vision for the world. We're actually in the age of Aquarius. You might remember from the 1960s that song, like the age of Aquarius. And it's not just a bunch of, hooty doody woo woo. And it's interesting, even if you think about the word new age, like, oh, that's so new age, and people poo poo it and they woo woo it and they, shoo shoo it. But we are entering a new age and we are in a major transformation. And it's been a long time coming. One of the things that gives me a lot of hope and faith is this has been, I don't like to use the word prophesize because it makes me feel like there's somebody with a crystal ball being like, "Oh, this is what's going to happen." But it's more like it has been spoken about in many different traditions. Somebody asked in the Feminine Power Time survey, in the survey that I'm doing right now, just to kind of get a sense of what you all want to hear and how I can do things better and where we kind of want to go from here. By the way, thank you to everyone who has participated. But one of, Rosa, I believe it was, she asked, who were some of your primary, most influential teachers and how did you find them? And I was very fortunate when I catalyzed myself out of the Midwest after finishing my MBA at Kellogg. And I just knew that I had to, as I call, seize the moment. And I could either just follow everyone else and do what everyone else was doing, or I could actually use the power of catalyzing and got rid of a lot of my stuff, moved the rest of it here with no job to the West Coast. And that was because I had been catalyzed by the universe with a 2x4 at the age of 30 that kicked me out of my comfort zone. And I had made a promise to myself that I would never do that again, that I would do the deep healing. And I would also make a commitment to creating a life and that really reflected my heart and soul. So I began my catalyzing journey way back then. And one of the things that I was able to find, which I think we need at these times, is I have three primary traditions that I've studied: the sacred feminine, indigenous wisdom, and yogic wisdom through three beautiful female teachers. And they're all right about the same age. They're all probably in their early 80s now. And, one of the things that all of those traditions talk about is this time that we're in, and that there would become this time when we have to wake up or be woken up. And there's that great Hopi elder prophecy poem that I often share where it says there's a great river coming and it's going to be like very, very fast and very fierce. And there will be those that decide to try to hang on to the shore. And the wisdom is, don't hang on to the shore, let go of the shore and allow yourself to float and be carried to the center of that river and look around for others like you. And that's why I do Feminine Power Time. This to me, while the podcast is the format, I really feel like we are in this together. And this is a place like an oasis that we can come and you can come and we connect and share superpowers and practical tools and perspectives. And so just going to take a deep breath here and invite you all to take a deep breath, as we always do, to kind of slow down as we go into this conversation today. The feminine superpower of Catalyze is actually the superpower we're working with right now in the feminine wisdom way. And so I've just been soaking it in. So, what I'm going to do today is I'm going to share three of the principles of the superpower of Catalyze and how you can practically use that to work with the things that are showing up that are either poking you or catalyzing you or asking you to release and shed, and maybe you're struggling with it, maybe you're not, but like how to understand how this happens to us all the time is part of life. But when you can learn to work with it consciously, you gain so much more power to be in what's called co-creation with the universe. So instead of being hit with a 2x4 from the universe, you become what I call a conscious catalyzer. So I'm going to share three of those principles with you today. And then I have a set of inquiries. So I have a series of questions that I ask myself, or inquiries, because questions want answers. We use inquiries because we're seeking wisdom. In this set of inquiries, I ask myself, and I ask all the women who are in the feminine wisdom way every year these inquiries, and we come back around to them. So I'm going to walk you through them as a way to help you kind of sink into what's wanting to be liberated within you, what's wanting to be more expressed right now from you. What is it that is being catalyzed through you, and how can you embrace that? And then one of my most favorite things about the superpower is that it really is about shedding roles, shedding responsibilities, shedding what are called robes of repression or robes of expression. So just like a snake sheds her skin, we come around every time at the hot dog days of the summer, at least in the northern hemisphere. And for those of you in the southern hemisphere, could still be shedding as we're going into this last quarter. So that's what we're going to do. Take a little sip from my wisdom cup here. Okay, here's what we're going to do. I'm going to start with a definition of the feminine superpower of catalyze. And if I was to give you an image or a symbol for it, think of a lightning bolt. So catalyzing is like a lightning bolt. And it is a lightning bolt that takes you out of your comfort zone. It's the lightning bolt of transformation. And just like any lightning bolt, you want it to happen with focus and quickness. And it has this power to liberate you from the constraints, from the pieces that just don't fit anymore, so that you can step forward into your self empowered soul evolution. So here is what the feminine superpower of Catalyze is. And you could close your eyes and just take this in as a little bit of a transmission, or keep your eyes open and just listen on in. The feminine superpower of Catalyze is the power to use the circumstances and situations that life brings you as liberators and elevators that lift you and others up to expanded levels of consciousness and reality. It is the power to choose to catalyze, initiate, and call forth oneself out of your comfort zone through the lightning fire of transformation with focus and quickness. And as a result, take a self-empowered step into your soul's evolution, liberating yourself to a more full and true expression. And these words are so powerful. I love the word liberate. Liberate means to free yourself and another or others from constraints that are either socially or systemically or self-imposed. And elevate means to lift up to a higher level of expression, of being. It lightens you up. You kind of, in alchemy and the phoenix, it's like when you burn off all that heavy stuff, which is called the dross or the negredo. It's like the burnt stuff on a marshmallow, right? When we make them to the marshmallow, and you pull that marshmallow burnt stuff off, and you get to the gooey, yummy goodness. Like that's what we're doing with you and with us right now, so that you could elevate, because you can't take that goop through you with you, and you can't we have these constraints that we put on ourselves. Like my hands are open right now and I'm like, why? I want to be free, right? And so that is the definition. And just like think of that word catalyze. What is calling you, dear one, to be catalyzed? What is catalyzing through you right now? And as I share these three principles, that's the inquiry I want you to kind of chew on and contemplate is, what would you love to catalyze? Maybe to start with, what would you love to catalyze in your work? What would you love to catalyze in your relationships? What would you love to catalyze in your physical foundation of home and health and wealth? And then also, like, what is being catalyzed? See, this is what we do as wise women, wise men, wise being. We look around and be like, okay, this is changing. This is happening. And I can either stick my head down in the sand and just pretend like it's not happening, or I can try to just, think my way through it, or read a nice little 7 steps to, happiness article and stay on the surface. Or I can be brave and I can go within and I can reach out for support, and I could root down into my physicality and my material self, and I can reach up and connect into that mystical spiritual self. And I say, okay, universe, let's go, let's go. And I always say about this piece with the lightning, because it's fire, you all. This is fire. This is, part of why we're seeing all these fires happening around me. There's many, many reasons why. And I just drove up from California and literally the side of the road was on fire as I drove past Mount Shasta. And more on that in podcasts to come. But that fire, like, we want it to also you don't wanna stand in the fire for, like, years and years and years. You'll get burnt up, like, you're the gooey part of the marshmallow, no bueno. So you need that water that's also with you, and we wanna be moving while transformation is actually happening. So take a moment and just this is my inquiry to kind of consider this as I share these principles. What is actually being catalyzed in your life right now? If you look at your work and you were honest with yourself about what your heart, your soul, spirit is actually calling for change, the change is happening. Whether you want to embrace it or you want to run from it or you want to ego will your way through it, just between me and you here, it's changing. It's calling for catalyzation. And then look at your relationships. It could be professional, it could be personal, it could be romantic, it could be friendships, it could be, your team that you work with. What is catalyzing? What is catalyzing in your relationships, your primary relationships right now? And it's changing. And this is like the thing, like the Hopi elders say, let go of the shore. The river is going to take you. And if that force of that river, if you try to stop it, it will just bang you up all over the place. And then third, what is being catalyzed in your area of your home and your health and your wealth? And just being able to say, this is, and it might feel like fire, especially when we're in that realm of our physical foundation of home or health or wealth, because it taps into our primal fear that we're going to be okay, or that primal fear that we might die or someone we love might die. Part of the reason we're seeing so much craziness in the world right now is people's primal fear is so activated. But most people have not done the deep, deep healing work to release that from their bodies and their psyches, nor do they have the tools to actually move through it. So it's just like this is why when you go onto the Facebook and it's like, oh my God, it's like a firing squad in there, and everyone's just firing off of each other. And so I'm inviting us to step outside of that crazy fire that is actually just burning things up, but not in a way that's actually healing and freeing. You see, the thing about catalyzing, like a lightning bolt, you have to ground it. Because if you don't ground it, if a lightning bolt doesn't go and hit the ground, that's when it creates that massive destruction. So as we go through this, part of the grounding is you don't have to rush and make everything happen right now. You don't have to, pull the plug and pull your safety net. It's an invitation to be awake and aware that this is happening, and then how can we do it so that you're conscious as we're moving through it. And I'm here with all the rest of you, so I'm getting catalyzed and I just know how to work with it. So let me share a couple of the principles, and you might hear me moving some pages around. I actually pulled out the Feminine Superpower of Catalyze guidebook that we use in Feminine Wisdom Ways. So for every superpower, there are these guidebooks. And so I just thought, why not just share the principles directly from there? So these are 3 principles that can help you become a conscious catalyzer. And by that, I mean that you embrace that you are being catalyzed, but also that you're catalyzing yourself. And this is a little challenging, especially when it's into the places that are really hard. And it's like, oh, like, and I don't mean like, oh, I caused this, or oh, I made myself sick, or I made myself not have enough money, or I made myself like it's not that self blame and judgment, but it's a self empowerment of saying, actually, like at some level, my soul is in for this. And I'm going to choose to embrace my power and my authority and my sovereignty and my agency to actually, instead of being a victim to it, to actually be in relationship to it and feel empowered as I go through it. So here's the first principle. You meet the challenges that arise in your life in all places, career, relationships, money, health, and home, as invitations from the divine. from the universe, whatever that greater force is for you, to elevate you into a greater level of expression, embodiment, and evolution, even when it's hard, which is oftentimes it is. You recontext the challenges as catalysts. So just think about that right now, where you might be having a challenge in your life. And these areas I keep pulling out: work, sacred work and career, physical foundation of home health and wealth, relationships, and then there's also just your own presence and who you're showing up as. These are the four realms that I work with monthly when we're working on manifesting and focusing, and they represent a condensed version of the 8 realms of a whole harmonized life, which for those of you who have read Overwhelmed and Over It, that is in the first section. And there's this, we call it the harmony wheel. So this is a way of kind of like looking at these 4 major areas. But think of a challenge. So just pick one for right now as we go through this. And just say, what would happen if I reconstellate this challenge as a catalyst, which will then give you a different, more empowered relationship with it. And it helps you keep your center of power inside the challenge. So, for example, right now, many of you know this. I am yet again dealing with and in the middle of a catalyst around home. So, what's really interesting, and this kind of goes into the second principle, is that usually we have the same catalyst will come back around and around and around and around. So, for example, with me, like I kind of like I swear, like at the age of 3, I was like, Where am I? Why am I living in this house? And who are these people? And where's my real family?" And I just like I never felt home. Home has always been part of my curriculum, and I've bought houses and I've built houses and I've rehabbed houses, and every time I just still like had the most suffering. I never, and it was never a joyful thing. I remember literally building a house and like my mini McMansion. And I was like, what the heck am I doing living 40 miles outside of Chicago in the city, in the suburb, which is not where I wanted to live at the age of 27, and just feeling so trapped. And even now, even though I don't currently own a home, which has been very freeing and very liberating, there's this deep desire in me to, know where home is. And so I always asking the universe, like, show me where to root, show me where to root. And in 2017, Noah and I literally said on our anniversary, we're going to stay in Valley of the Moon in Sonoma in California. We choose here. We are going to root here. And literally that night, the whole entire valley caught on fire. We woke up at 5 o'clock in the morning. Sky was orange. It looked like Armageddon. The sun was in the wrong place, and we had to evacuate. And I was like, and then half the quarter of the housing stock burned, and we couldn't find a place to rent for less than $6,000 a month, and we didn't really like that. So we were like, we got to get out of this bubble that we're in, and got moved. We moved up here to where I'm at now, on the coast of Seattle, and it was totally triggered my home wound and like just broke open that love crack inside of me. But I was so aware of it during the time. I knew that I had a choice where I could either use the catalyst. It was happening. It was happening. I mean, I guess I could have paid $6,000 a month for rent, but then that would have created another catalyst in the area of money and having to work really hard and me forcing something. And I remember when we got up here, we rented for a month a little Zen studio called the Tree House. It was so small, you all. It was like it's kind of a little bit bigger than a teeny house, and it had like these. It had a loft where you had to sleep upstairs, like a little bird's nest that had like stair, not stairs. It had a ladder. So Noah had to carry Sahaji, our 40-pound border collie, up up the ladder every night. But I remember laying in that bed and looking over, and the guy that owned it, he's a photographer, and in the corner was this picture of this little girl holding a teddy bear. And I remember laying in the bed and like, are you kidding me? Like that little being, like there's this little, just little child who's holding this teddy bear. And it was like my inner child looking back at me and saying, "Yes, Christine, like we're going to go into that wound around home again." And so I chose to do that at that time. And that was the universe guiding me that this is happening who do you want to be in it? It's a challenge. It's not what you would have chosen. And so think of that for yourself. It's like it may not be what you've chosen, but where is the universe showing up and kind of showing you, look over here, look over here, look over here. This is actually this is actually for you, even if it's really painful right now. And so this comes to our second principle. You embrace life as a teacher and a dynamic dancer, choosing to move through the struggle with a sense of curiosity and listening to find the flow. You understand at a cellular level, not just in your mind, that your life is your teacher and it's also your curriculum. And so you become aware. So, really take this part in. You get clear and aware and wise about what your core lessons are in this soul's journey. Because this is the thing. It's like this is like it's interesting, whenever I'm doing leadership coaching for a person who is working inside of the system, inside of a company, I always say to them, I go, we're going to do the things that are going to make you a better leader. We're going to help you, with your presence, your power, your purpose, like all of those things. But what we have to know going in is that our careers, our jobs, our work environments, they are just like one big, huge playground for, dealing with and healing all of that inside stuff that we've not dealt with. And until you look at that and you're aware of it, you just keep getting triggered again and again and again. Or you show up, you get the same company, but different, but same shit, different nameplate. You end up with the same boss again and again and again. And if you can look at that as like, oh, like my relationships, my work, like these are all things that are happening to us, to you, for you, to continue to like liberate yourself from that dross, to heal, to free yourself, and also to elevate into even more of the beautiful, deep, divine expression that is you. You are literally transforming, dear one, right now. Right now. And so just take a moment and really look around your life, look inside yourself, just take a me moment and be like, I am transforming. Like literally, we're cellularly transforming. And so if you can dial into what are the two parts, maybe like one or two pieces that keep showing up for you again and again, you'll spend less time judging yourself and more time working your curriculum. So you come to a deeper understanding that you can use for yourself and also for those you serve or lead or guide or influence. And then you can use all of that to lift yourself and others up. So if you were to put both your hands out right now, there's really only about maybe 7 to 10 core pieces of curriculum that we kind of show up with. So I'll share these, list them out. Which of these are the ones that the areas that kind of show up again and again and again? And as I go through them, just be like, yes, that might be one of them. And you can even write them down. I'll put them in the show notes too. So for you, is it career? Is it home? Is it parenting? Is it money? Is it health? Is it relationships? I hate the word romantic for relationships, but for expedience, like romantic relationships, beloved relationships, the romantic ones. Is it relationships with friends? Or even maybe relationships with I always like for sometimes for women it's with other women and for men it's with other men, like with a specific gender that shows up. Is it your family relationships, your family of origin? Or is it yourself? Is it yourself? Sometimes people, it's like sometimes when I look at people who are really into and over push themselves in sports, and they might excel in those sports, whether it's a hobby or not, or it's something they do professionally. There's something going on inside of them that is pushing them so hard that they're trying to work out within themselves. So which of these areas would you say, and pick one or maybe two, no more than that, really are the ones that show up for you? Career, home, parenting, money, health, relationships with romantic relationships, friends or relationships with the same gender or family, or maybe even, specific person in your family, or your own kind of internal struggle with yourself. And so this is where the liberation is in this. And I'll share a personal story. When you can see, like, oh, these are just my things. Like, these are my things. And you ever have that experience when you're like, oh my God, that again? I thought I was over that. Oh my God, that again? I thought I was over that. And then that shit comes back around and you're like, that again? And then a lot of times I hear this come out of women's mouths. They'll be like, I haven't gotten anywhere. Nothing has changed. And I'm regressing and, la, 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 la. And what I say to them, what I said to myself yesterday as I was sitting on the floor of my studio, where I'm now sitting on my chair, and I'll share my story in a moment, is I want you all to take your finger and move your finger around in a spiral, and take that spiral and do this with me. I'm not kidding. I want you to do this. I want you to take the spiral and go down, and then take the spiral and go up, right? Okay. So this is more like what our life is like. If you think of it like, so for me, two of my major curriculums have been money and home. And I'll talk about money specifically in this area. And yesterday I was sitting down in my office here in my studio, and because I know we are going to be moving at some point, I'm starting to lighten the load. So Saturdays are my Sabbath day, and I was like, I'm gonna just go through my journals. I have a lot of journals. I do yearly journals. I've done yearly journals since 2002. And also in the Feminine Wisdom Way, we do the Emerge process every January. And then I do a journal that actually tracks my progress with my goals and my intentions and all of that. So I have these really amazing journals. And I had an inner mean girl attack. I did. I totally had an inner mean girl attack, because there's this part around money, and it's specifically connected as an entrepreneur to taxes. And taxes have been my curriculum. I've gone down the spiral with it, and I've come up the spiral with it. And I have learned a lot about myself from it. And I've also, part of my soul's path is to redefine what success is. And because success in this culture is so tied to money, and so much of the constraint and fear of why we don't step forward onto our soul's path and live more aligned lives is because of fear of not having enough money, and also the disparity in our culture around money. I mean, it's connected to our primal fear. So some of you've heard me tell the story in 2012 when the market, crashed in 2008, and I had this house, and it was underwater, and I was like, okay, either I got to choose my credit score, and I have to short sell this house, and either my credit score is going to tank or I'm going to tank. And so I was like, my credit score will come back, my health won't. So I've had these choices, that I've made. And when I looked at all those journals, I was like, oh my God, like I'm still like, it's like the state of California showed up last year and it's like, you owe $9,000. I'm like, I haven't lived in California in 3 years. How could I still owe the state of California more taxes? So it's like this thing that just keeps coming back into my sphere. And it used to get me really, really mad. And I've done the work to unwind that. And now I'm like, okay, well, that's what that is. And so, that will get released, and we'll move forward from here. But it was hard to look at kind of the same thing that I wanted to create, that in my mind I don't feel like is 100% there. And 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 it's also part of my curriculum and what I share and what I teach with all of you, is I'm learning I can share with you. And I can honestly say, as I looked at, I may not have the dollar amount that I would like to have in savings, or I might not have the dollar amount that I would, like to have to be able to pay off past taxes, or whatever it is, or whatever numbers I said I wanted to have by the time I, turned 50, or whatever it was. But when I got out of my inner mean girl attack about it, and I went back to this part around the curriculum, and this being I'm in relationship to it, I was like, I could see the gift of how I have such deep trust and faith and financial independence when it comes to knowing no matter what, as long as I follow my inner knowing and I work at a pace that is divine's will versus my will, I will have sufficiency. I may not have a Rolls Royce, I may not have 8 gazillion stock options, but I will have sufficiency. And nothing real has ever been sacrificed. Not anything real. I mean, I may have less shoes or I may not buy the latest X, Y, or Z, but nothing real has been sacrificed, and I've been able to live with a lot simpler of a life and without having to have so much stuff. So even when we do move, I don't have a lot of stuff I have to, like, get, 3 cargo vans to move wherever we go. So I share that with you to just pause and consider what that curriculum is for you and how it might keep showing up. And what would happen if instead of struggling and railing against it, if you could just let the reins go and be like, okay, friend, I see you. I wouldn't want to have to choose this, but apparently we've chosen each other. And this is just my curriculum. And the spiritual teaching is we can choose to learn through struggle, and we will until we get to the point where we're ready to learn from joy. And so when, for example, that $9,000 thing came in from the state of California, I didn't rail, I didn't get angry, I didn't get depressed. I was just like, all right, what are we going to do to create $9,000 or put that onto a payment plan and we'll just pay it monthly until it goes away. And just be like, okay, that's just part of us releasing our business relationship and our financial relationship with the state of California. And that's how I chose to be with it, no sweat, and then moving on. So that's the difference. It doesn't mean stuff like that doesn't come into your field, but can you come at it from the elevated perspective? And that's more than we're going to talk about today, because what I'm saying here is not that you don't have your emotion. You get to be human, but then how you choose to be in relationship to this, whatever that catalyst is, comes from that elevated level. And that's where we need community. That's where we need to have mentors. That's where we need to have people who can just listen to us and we can have our human emotion. I mean, I had an amazing wealth advisor that Noah and I worked with for a couple years that just helped us work through our own dynamic with money and how that was showing up. And she's the one who said, Christine, you have to stop being angry at taxes. I'm like, but I don't understand why the working person, normal person has to pay all these taxes and people who have all this money and corporations don't pay their fair share. And so what it was really about is a lack of fairness and just like an anger at the system and how it's set up. And and so that's where I focused at for that year and releasing that. And is the unfairness still there? Yes. And I'm doing other things to be able to do my part to be able to shift that. So, y'all ready for the third one? All right. Big up. Okay. Let's do a little stretchy. Okay. I want you to imagine a snake. Did you know that a snake doesn't it sheds its old skin while it's growing its new skin? So it's not like a naked snake that's just swirling around. I got no skin. I got no skin. I got no skin. No, it's a smart snake. It's like I'm gonna grow my old skin while I'm shedding the other one, so I'm not naked. So every year at this time, and also whenever I do any kind of leadership retreat or really any kind of retreat, we do a ritual that is about choosing to release and shed. I love this words. And so here's the principle. You choose to shed the old parts of self with gratitude and grace to allow new skins, new expressions to grow and form, realizing that you are always evolving, shedding, and becoming. You realize that over the course of your life, you will continue to evolve, which means you have to release the ways of being in the world that no longer are needed or no longer serve you. And here's the key part about this. You don't make those parts of you wrong because they were right for the time that you were doing them. It's that overstaying, that over holding onto, that over like layering on all of these, parts to you. You're just wise enough to know that it's time for a new wardrobe, that there's a better expression of your essence of who you are emerging into from this place. And so think about this question. It's my question. What skins are you being invited to shed? And it's kind of like you ever have like a closet full of clothes and you have some things that you know don't fit you and you know are old or they're out of style, but you can't get rid of them. This is part of what you do not want. We do not want to be doing. We want to release with love and release with intention. So we're going to kind of break this down into three different parts. What are the roles that you would love to shed or that are needed to be shed at this time? And you can think about those as roles in professionally or roles personally. Or you can think about them in your relationship, right? A lot of women I work with I don't like to use this term, the major breadwinner, because I'm like, why are we winning bread? But they are the person who is responsible for creating most of the money into their household. And so they are wanting to shed being the primary person who with all the responsibility, that responsibility. Or I'm thinking of a dear beloved I've worked with and mentored, and she used to take responsibility. She was the caretaker in the role in her family. If something needed to be happen with her parents, if something needed taken care of, she was there. And so we consciously release that role of, solitary solo caregiver, and to spread that around the family system. And so thinking about this in terms of your personal life, in terms of your family life and relationships, and also I'm thinking of another friend who, like, she was the person that all of her friends went to because she's a coach. And she'd have, like, I asked her how many people she had in her soul family. And she's like, 25. I'm like, you can't have 25 people in your soul family. Like, this was part of the love rings, the relationship rings. That's like your inner circle. She's like, well, these are all the people. They're always calling me for help and support. And so I'm so involved in their life. I'm like, well, no wonder you're burned out, lady. Like, you can have like maybe 6 or 8, but not, not so many. And so what roles are ready to be shed? 2, what responsibilities, dear one, have you been carrying, and maybe it's been fine, but you're like, I am so freaking ready to shed this responsibility? And do yourself the favor to name it here and take an exhale. And then the last one is, what robe of repression or expression are you ready to shed? So a robe of repression is something that is either put on you or you put on that dampens you down. And a robe of expression just doesn't fit you anymore. And if you could release that robe of previous expression, it would free up so much space. It's like when I released the mantle of the Queen of Self-Love, gosh, now over 6 years ago, when I founded the Path of Self-Love School, I released the Queen of Self-Love as one of the mantles, which I had stood in for a long time to help really bring self-love in a very practical, methodical way onto the planet. And then when I founded that school, I'm like, I'm retiring my jersey. I'm retiring the robe. Like, there doesn't need to be a queen. Like, this is a village. This is a school. This is a movement that was always way bigger than me. And I put on the mantle as founder of the Path of Self-Love, as social impact entrepreneur who's committed to generational change, in part by using and teaching self-love as a real thing that is a very practical path and choice. And so that was me shedding. Literally, I kind of saw it like, like a Michael Jordan, putting up his his jersey. I'm like, retired. And so, like, what might that be for you that might give you the freedom to step into something that's more aligned with who you are now? And I just like loved sharing the story with you because, like, for example, this fall and last fall, I used to do all the teaching for self-love. I did everything. It's part of the over responsibility. I did it all. And then we started the school. In the last 2 years, we teach a self-love essentials class. And I come in as a teacher twice, but I'm not the one running all of it. The co-founder, Lee Guthrie, she and another one of our teachers, Rebecca, they are running the class with the tools that I've taught them. Lee's taught side by side with me for a long time. And I get to come and I get to teach the parts that I can uniquely teach around overwhelm and self-sustainability. And that can live on then without me having to do it all because I'm a founder. And so that's the power of choosing to graduate into the next role and where you want to put your energy at and where you're feeling called to go. And that's part of the gift. And this is where we'll end. And then I'll have just a short little meditation here for you. Let's use the gift of what's happening in and on the planet right now. This is a massive global transformation. And you can use this energy to actually transform from the inside out and also the things around you. You can use it or you can get confused by it. You can get sucked up in it. You could run away from it. And I don't mean step in the middle of the fray and with your battle axe and, whatever and get all caught up in the fire. If you did not listen last year to my Sacred Transformation podcast series, really, really suggest you do or go back and re-listen to it because I talk about sacred transformation and what it is, which is all about transformation happening. The word sacred means to do something in a way that is only from a place of respect and no violence in order to create wholeness. And so that has to start with us in ourselves first, right? And so let's use this. And you've heard me also talk a little bit about the guidance I got in 2019, just kind of my inner guidance or my divine downline saying, "Hey, something's going to happen. Something's coming. You can't stop it." And it wasn't just me. I had also some of my wise women councils. They were getting similar messages. It has its own trajectory. Focus yourself and focus the people in your care and in your communities on the center of 2022 and create for there into there. So there are pieces to heal. And when I into the sacred transformation, I talk about the sacred transformation triangle and that we are healing and releasing the past. And we are sustaining and need to sustain in the now. And we're also creating and leading to the new. So all three of these are happening at the same times, which is why it's so intense. And it's happening at 6 different levels: personal, relational, generational, social, planetary. It's happening on multiple levels. So take a breath. Just close your eyes here for a moment. You can put your hand on your heart or your belly. I'm just going to ask you, lead you into 3 questions to just feel into so that you can really embrace your power to catalyze and do it in a way that heals and not harms. Do it in a way that empowers instead of disempowers. Do it in a way that focuses instead of fragments. Right, here we go. So just really coming home here to yourself, feeling your breath, and allowing yourself to feel your body, your mind, your spirit, your heart. Feeling into this energy of liberation. What's calling you forth to be liberated, to free yourself from. Starting with what inside of you desires to be more free to express. It's like you can feel it just wanting to spread its wings, wanting to come out, wanting to be more embodied, wanting space in your life. What inside of you, dear one, desires to be more free to express? And just, you can even take your arms and just opening it up and just feeling that coming out of your heart and your belly. And then keeping those arms either open physically or metaphorically open. What do you desire to be more free to receive? What do you desire to be more free to receive? Just feel what it would be like to allow yourself to receive that. Like it's just washing over you, washing through you. You just have to open to receive it. You have to name that this is what you desire. You don't have to like go out and make it all happen. You do have to open to receive it first and give yourself permission to receive it so that you can then make your choices accordingly. And 3, what ways of living, relating, or working are you complete with? You're just done. Like this is done. You are done, completo, finito, and you're ready to liberate yourself from. You can think of your work or relationships, health, wealth, home, and the patterns, the habits, the realities, and the ways of operating within them that you're like, I'm complete and I leave this here. I catalyze, I liberate, almost like you can even feel yourself stepping out of a skin, stepping into a different reality. And with gratitude, these served me for a time, and I can see how these have served me, and I am now complete. I have a couple words here for you. Well, one word here. Sometimes we need to release what we've been good at so we can step into our greatness. Sometimes we need to release what has felt good and comfortable and safe and secure in order to receive even more of the splendor and beauty and possibility that is our divine birthright. Sometimes we need to release who we've been so we can reveal who we are now and create the space for that elevation and evolution. When you're ready, just opening your eyes. All right, dear one, you've officially been given the superpower of Catalyze. For those of you that are in the Feminine Wisdom Way community, you just got a double dose. For those of you who are not familiar with the Feminine Wisdom Way, it's the wisdom school that I founded also in 2015. I founded 2 schools in the same year, and it is a place and community where women come to study the feminine and put it practically into our lives. All right, here's our ending poem from page 6 of our Catalyze guidebook here. Dare to move out of what is comfortable, dear one, into what is calling your heart and soul to express. Dare to liberate yourself from what binds you, to be free to more fully fly and give all you came to live. Dare to catalyze yourself instead of wait for someone else or the universe to do it for you. Dare to dance with the earth and not burn things out of impatience. Meet the challenges of life with your primal force, fierce grace embodied, dancing through you. Do not be afraid of the fire. Ground and focus the fire to set yourself and your desires free. So, see you on the playground with your lightning bolts. Much love.
What a beautiful meditation and such a powerful topic, catalyze. To support you in identifying what's ripe and ready for catalyzing in your life right now, I thought I'd share a bit about how the superpower of catalyze has shown up and worked in my life. Now, catalyze is one of the superpowers that took me probably the longest to really, really sink my teeth into. My mode of operating, my conditioning was one of conflict avoidance, people pleasing, perfectionism, all of which really get in the way of catalyzing, as it turns out. So, I'm going to share an example of what this looked like in my life before studying feminine wisdom, and then what it can look like when we choose to consciously catalyze with the superpowers of the feminine. So, how has the superpower of catalyze worked in my life? Well, as I mentioned, I came into this earth and was conditioned to be fairly conflict and confrontation averse, people pleaser, not wanting to disappoint another, not wanting to shatter the facade of perfection. And I've been catalyzed by the universal 2x4, as Christine calls it. I was in a relationship for a long time, years, that was not aligned. And I actually knew pretty early on that it had run its course, but I recommitted anyway, out of scarcity mindset, living up to the expectations of others, not wanting to hurt anyone's feelings. But the thing is, it was much more harmful to everyone at the end of the day, including me, to stay in a relationship that wasn't aligned. And eventually, I got hit by the universal 2x4 and the relationship finally broke apart. But you know what? In the meantime, I had torn down all sorts of other structures in my life, friendships, my career, thinking that by making shifts there, it would make up for the misalignment in my relationship. It's kind of like trying to redecorate the living room by changing the paint and the furniture and the art on the walls, but leaving the smelly shag carpet on the floor and just sort of ignoring the smell. You know what I mean? And here's the thing, it's been like 15 years since that universal 2x4, and I've spent over the past 12 years studying the feminine superpower of Catalyze. And I only just recently received this insight that I'd been responding to the challenge in my relationship by going around and setting fire to the other realms of my life. I made a very significant career change around the same time as the universal 2x4 came in. And it was in response to the misalignment I was feeling. And by misalignment, I am talking body, mind, heart, and spirit. The vertebrae in my neck literally subluxated at one point, and I couldn't even sit upright because it was so painful. And of course, once disease shows up in the body, it's been in the mind, the heart, and the spirit for a while. So, in response, I made a huge career shift, 100% initiated by me. And it took me almost a decade of studying the feminine to realize that I might not have even needed to make that shift. Had I just chosen to be a conscious catalyzer in the realm of relationship, I might not have had to burn the other realms down. And that's how this works. The learning is never finished. There's no arrival point. The wisdom just keeps opening up, and we move through life in a spiral motion. That's another piece of feminine wisdom that's brought me so much comfort and grace. This idea of life as a spiral instead of linear. With a linear path, we never come back around to things again, and we have to keep efforting to push forward. With a spiral, our life has its own momentum, and we spiral around to lessons over and over again. But as with a spiral, we're not in exactly the same place. So it's not a sliding backward, it's a coming around again to deepen our learning, to polish our wise goggles, and to move through whatever challenge from a more elevated perspective. And these challenges, as Christine shared, tend to occur in the same couple areas of life. It's our curriculum, as she said. So that's an example of how Catalyze showed up in my life before I had the tools of feminine wisdom and before I knew how to be a conscious catalyzer. Now, since becoming a conscious catalyzer, since practicing the feminine superpower of Catalyze, I've actually made two major changes, two major moves in the realm of home that I've done from a conscious place. So I've made two major moves in the past 7 years. The first one was leaving Chicago after 20 years of living there and moving across the country at 8.5 months pregnant. Now, that's a big move, and it happened pretty quickly. And I was only able to do this because I chose to engage with the shift. I chose to engage with the things that were shifting and changing around me and to pause and look at what really mattered and ask what is needed here and what are the principles and the values that we hold dear, and then to respond, and then to meet the shifts and the changes from a conscious and intentional place. And then a year ago, I moved again, this time to another country with my family, including two young children, where we integrated into a new culture, a new language, new everything. Now, this shift didn't happen overnight. I began working with this catalyst about 18 months before we actually moved. And, that's another piece of this. By consciously engaging with the shift in that instance, I had the space to be intentional. I felt things shifting, I felt the discomfort, and embraced that I was being catalyzed. This was a catalyst, and I chose to work with it, to work with the energy, and to be a conscious catalyzer. And you know what? There was so much more ease and grace to be had when I let go of the shore, so to speak, and leaned into the challenge and the change. So, here's the invitation and the inquiry for the week. What is calling you to be catalyzed? This could be something that's catalyzing through you, showing up, like that example of moving where it's like, okay, here's the catalyst, something you can consciously choose to work with, or it may be something that you would just love to catalyze. So write this inquiry in your journal and sit with it, contemplate it. Better yet, share this podcast with a friend and invite them to conversate on this inquiry with you. Together, you can illuminate, you can witness, you can reflect to each other and really pull out those pieces of wisdom that are already within you. We'll also be posting the inquiry up in the Feminine Wisdom Cafe over the next week, so you can drop in there and connect and share what's coming up for you in your life that you're choosing to consciously catalyze. Christine and I are there too, and we would be delighted to connect with you and witness your journey. And then join us next week when we'll be conversating on wielding our co-creative power, which goes hand in hand with the superpower of Catalyze, because once we've released what no longer serves, we can use the power of co-creation to embrace and create what's next. We've got a powerful month ahead, so I hope you'll join us for all of it. Looking forward to being with you again. Sending you all off with much love.